everyone, and thanks for joining us again this month for Fire Safe Sonoma's monthly speaker series program. We do this program uh, once a month on the fourth Thursday of the month from 2 o'clock till 3 o'clock. So thanks for coming out and joining us. Let's see, we live stream this program through our YouTube channel. And if you've missed any of our past speaker series programs, you can always take a look at them on our YouTube channel. There is a lot of great information there, so check it out. We're in our third or fourth season, if you will. So there's quite a lot of content, really good stuff. My name is Roberta McIntyre, and I'm the president and CEO of Fire Safe Sonoma. And I will be your host today, like most days. For folks who might not know, Fire Safe Sonoma is the countywide fire safe council serving Sonoma County for 26 years. Yeah, we've been working in the space for quite a while before wildland fire safety and risk reduction was popular, if you think about it. Before we get started, I want to thank Team Fire Safe Sonoma today for helping out with us. I want to thank Rebecca Fisher, our past fellow, who is now our paid staff program assistant. And also, we still have, in spite of the quashing of AmeriCorps, we are able to hold on to our four. There used to be AmeriCorps fellows, but our California Climate Action Corps fellows. The state was gracious enough to work with the California Climate Action Corps team and continue funding for our four fellows so they can finish out their term. So shame on you, whoever got rid of the AmeriCorps program, and thank you, State of California, for helping to fund our fellows. So don't forget to check out the Fire Safe Sonoma calendar on our website for upcoming events. In fact, I have a handful of events I want to share with you coming up. The Fire Safe Sonoma, in collaboration with Northern Sonoma County CERT, Community Emergency Response Team, we're doing an earthquake disaster simulation on Saturday, May 31st from 10 to 2. And so it's Northern Sonoma County CERT in conjunction with also several fire services agencies. Will be holding a combined animal and human earthquake disaster simulation event. So come on out to the fairgrounds. It's free parking as well on May 31st, and check it out. It'd be really interesting to watch and see how, how things would be managed during an earthquake, particularly with the community emergency response team crews. Following that, on the next day, Fire Safe Sonoma invites you to join us for the 5th annual Wildfire Earthquake Expo, the largest emergency preparedness event in Sonoma County. And it's happening on June 1st from 10 until 3. This free event offers unique hands-on opportunities to learn how county and municipal emergency response teams work together to keep us safe during wildfires and earthquakes. You will also discover how to better prepare yourself to assist your family, business, property, pets, and livestock in the event of almost any emergency. By the way, if you guys want to help out during the event, during the simulation, if you want to be a victim, or if you want to be just a volunteer helping out with it, please sign up to volunteer. If you're interested, we'll drop that sign up form in the link. Yeah, we are looking for quite a bit of help to get the event set up, and also, staffing during the event, help us with a lot of stuff, a lot to do, and we're not able to do it all by ourselves. So any help that we can get from folks who are willing and interested in volunteering would be much appreciated. And then, of course, we have our Fire Safe Sonoma regular board meeting. We're not having one in May because of the holiday, but then so we'll be skipping that month, but we will return to our regular schedule in June. So check that out. You could get the exact date and time on our website. Also for the month of June, we'll be holding a volunteer event at Sonoma State's Galbraith Wildlands Preserve on Saturday, June 6th, 10 to 3 p.m., 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Volunteers will be taught how to make burn piles and strategically place them around the preserve to prepare for the next off season of prescribed burning. Sign up while space is still available. These trainings fill up really quick. They're really popular. I don't know what it is, but a lot of people seem to like learning how to play with fire properly. Lastly, don't miss us at the Petaluma Fair from June 19th to the 22nd. From delicious food vendors to fun, family-friendly activities throughout town, the fair has something for everyone. Grab a ticket, stop by to learn more about wildfire preparedness. We hope to see you there. And also, remember, as usual, to stay in the loop, subscribe to our updates. Last month, we heard from Jen Roberts, who discussed the importance of creating resilient landscapes to reduce wildfire risk while being fire-wise, water-wise, and biodiverse through California native plants and sustainable practices. I've learned a lot from the RLC as a collaborating member, and I'm improving my landscape to use natives, et cetera, based on what I've learned from the folks. And then Jen's presentation is on our YouTube channel, so feel free to check that out after watching today's speaker series. So don't leave now. We're in for a good presentation with Chief Nicholls. You can also see the concepts that Jen talked about in her presentation in action at a special exhibit at the Wildfire and Earthquake Expo, again on June 1st. So now I've got all that out of the way. I'm only a minute and a half behind schedule. This month we are pleased to be joined by CAL FIRE Chief Ben Nicholls, who will share the CAL FIRE seasonal outlook the best he can with the information he has available. And Chief Nicholls has 30 years of experience with the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. In short, we all know it as CAL FIRE, of course. Ben has worked in a variety of programs and specialties throughout his career, including Wildland and Municipal Fire Protection, Emergency Command Center operations, fire prevention, law enforcement, and pre-fire, among other things. In his current assignment, Chief Nicholls oversees and coordinates CAL FIRE operations within the Sonoma Lake Napa unit, and the unit we are in. Chief Nicholls has also been a part of firefighting operations on all major wildland fires in Sonoma County since 2017. So let's give Chief Nicholls a nice warm welcome. And Chief, I am going to hand the baton over to you, and I'm going to stay out of your way and enjoy this really cool presentation. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Roberta. Thank you, everybody, for having me this afternoon. A little casual Thursday today. I'm up in Reading attending a training, so we're doing this on the fly. So bear with me today as we get our PowerPoint set up here and underway. Let me get us set up here.
So far, looks good on our end.
All right. So welcome to the 2025 fire season, or as we refer to anymore, the fire year. Specifically, as we kick off into our presentation, those that are not familiar with the purple flag, it is a thing. It is bigger and more substantial than a red flag warning. And this is an occurrence that resulted from the January 5th, the January 7th wind event that struck Southern California. So on your screen, you see what the residents of Southern Sonoma County, Southern California, the LA basin saw on June 5th, predicting a catastrophic wind event on the 7th of January. We all know how that ended, right? But today we're here to talk about our county and our local fire risks. So this screenshot that you see in front of you is the fire conditions, the weather conditions, the same night that the Southern California fires kicked off here in our backyard in Sonoma County. And so I took a snapshot across the board, and the arrows that you see on the screen indicate the direction that the wind is blowing from to. So the smallest end of that wind vane is pointing in the direction that that wind flow is flowing to. So this was an offshore wind event the same night that LA was experiencing one of the deadliest fires in state history. So local conditions up on the top of Hawkeye, up by the geysers, kind of the top right corner. I guess you probably can't see it. Hawkeye, the point that we're looking at is right there up by the geyser steam field. And so that night at midnight, we had a temperature that wasn't super exciting, but the relative humidity at the time, again, midnight, was 14%, with winds blowing at 34 miles per hour out of the northeast, gusting to 53 miles per hour. So the moral of the story is, had we had the same drought conditions that Southern California had, we would have been just as at risk, not necessarily a purple flag up here, but we would have had the risk for one of our own catastrophic offshore wind event fires that we're so accustomed to. This is important, and it's further articulated by the fact that the screen in front of you now is the entire month of January's rainfall totals for Sonoma County. And so where average we would have a significantly wet month that would bring steady continuous rain through that period of time, the spigot had turned off during that period of time. We had a good initial run coming in to start the year. Santa Rosa was at 11.35 inches. But then for the entire month of January, all we got was 9/10 of an inch in Santa Rosa. So this was a significant event, because when we talked historically about fire season, we expected rainfall throughout the winter period and then a dry period during the spring and summer months as we went through our Mediterranean season. Month of January, we don't see any rainfall, so those fuels start that curing process, putting us into what could have shaped up, if the rain had turned off, it would have set us up into a scenario similar to what Southern California is experiencing now. However, we lucked out and the rain returned in that first week of February. And so within 7 days period of time, Santa Rosa got more than an average February month's worth of precipitation just in that very first week of February. So we really got saved when that rainfall returned to the region. But we're seeing this more and more often, where we get a significant storm and then a prolonged dry period, and then another significant storm and a prolonged dry period. So when we look at the end of the year totals, we're actually doing good for where we're at for average historic rainfall totals. The problem is that the fuels are more receptive to burning because they didn't have that constant exposure to the humidity and the precipitation throughout the winter. So this is the energy release component graph that you can find if you go to our Northern Operation Geographic Coordination Center, listed underneath our fire fuels. And so the energy release component, for those who haven't caught my conversation before or others, is the energy that's expected to be released at the head of the fire, the flaming front of the fire, as it burns through an area. So it's a good descriptor, it's a good indicator of fuel conditions, long-term drought, and what that potential is for that fire spread and activity when we have that fire. So on that graph here, so again, those that haven't seen the graph before, firefighters are very visual creatures, and so red is bad, green is good. So in this graph, the green is the higher fuel moisture period of time during the winter time. As we transition through the season, we get into the orange as we're getting into critical fire season, into the peak of fire season. And then red is highest level periods of exposures. So on that graph, the blue line is indicative of blue is the conditions that we're seeing this year. So this is from November 1st of last year all the way through October 31st of when we can expect rainfall historically on the backside of fire season. So blue is our current year. Gray is the average over the period of time from 2000 to 2022, so a 22-year period of time. And the red is the maximum value in this case, the worst day, the driest conditions with the most threat for rapid fire propagation. So as you can see, we talked about that January period of time where that rain turned off. So we had regular storms backside of last year, and then that rain turned off. And so those fuels started that drying and curing process that took us to almost maximum recorded values in the late part of January. Luckily, that rain returned, and that's that nosedive of those values as we came into the first week of February. Another note on this graph, there's a little green tail at the end of the blue, and so that's a 7-day forecast based on what's expected to occur over the next 7 days from the meteorologists. But the blue gives you a good idea of where we would be at during a normal year. So last week when I was initially putting the slides together, we were right around average, so life was good. Unfortunately, we've had conditions that have dried out, and so now we're creeping back up. We're nowhere near critical yet, but we're definitely above where we'd be at during a normal time of the year. And so to figure out kind of where we would expect these conditions in an average year, you can draw a horizontal line from the current readings over to where it intersects the average or the gray line. And in this case, we're looking at early June. So a while ago, we're still flirting right around 2 weeks ahead of where we would be in a normal year. So we talked about the energy release component as it related to fire. Now we're talking about fuels. So thinking about green grass or a dead, dry log or dead grass, green is good. Brown is critically low fuel moisture. So the 1,000-hour fuels are the larger forest fuels that are more indicative of what long-term weather trends are looking like. So we don't use 1-hour fuels, what we call grass, because 1 hour, the timeline, the hour component we talk about is the change in weather or conditions that translate to a change in that fuel moisture, that availability of moisture in that fuel. So when we talk about grass being a 1-hour fuel, we're all familiar with that early summer morning with the dew hanging off the grass, and within an hour of the sun coming up and getting that direct light on that grass, now that grass is dried out and ready to burn again. So when we talk about 1,000-hour fuels, it takes 1,000 hours for those fuels to change their fuel moisture based on the current conditions that they're experiencing. So again, similar to the energy release component graph, we saw that dive in January when the rain systems turned off. And while we didn't get quite as close to those critical or those maximum, in this case, minimum recorded values, it got close, and it was as a result of that rainfall that disappeared for the month of January. We got that rain back in February, things picked back up. And so as you saw, we spent a good amount of time actually with more moisture out there than even in an average year. But unfortunately, with the early May wind events that we've seen, although we haven't graduated to a red flag in Sonoma County, those offshore flows continued that drying process. And so now we've seen our values slip down, but then we got a little bit of a break. And so we're back up to average values. So not looking horrible on this graph, but it shows you those impacts when we get those offshore wind events and or when rainfall is not happening that's supposed to be hitting our county. When we talk about the mid-coast to Mendocino area. I clipped that off accidentally. It's basically from San Francisco north through Mendocino County is our predictive services area. So if you were doing your own search online, it's the NCO2 mid-coast to Mendocino area. Okay, so the Weather Service has also released the 3-month outlooks for what they anticipate the temperatures and precipitation is looking like. And so as you see, precipitation we're not too excited about here in California, right? Especially in our neck of the woods, that we don't expect to see rainfall in June, July, and August. So when they talk about equal chances, it's equal chances that we'll get nothing, right? So that graph isn't as exciting this time of the year. However, on the temperature side, they are anticipating a warmer above average temperature for obviously the western United States and extending out into our neck of the woods. So that's going to aid in the drying process the deeper we get into fire season. So every month, our NORTHOPS, what we call NORTHOPS, the Northern Operational Geographic Coordination Center, releases a 4-month outlook for what fire season is going to look like. So first of every month, this report is released. And so as of May 1st, this is the most current 4-month outlook that we have. And you can see that for the month of May, we expect normal significant fire potential opportunities here in Northern California. And when we talk about when we talk about normal significant fire potential in our area, this is NCO2, the mid-coast to Mendocino range. When we talk about that area, during peak fire season, June, we can expect on an average year, 1 to 3 large fires. And then as we get deeper into fire season, 1 to 4 fires during that period of time. Large fires, not your day-to-day fires, what we call extended attack or major fires. So even though we're showing normal for the month of May, the last handful of years, we actually were showing below normal green, which last year was kind of a misnomer because we had the point fire off of Stewart's Point, Skag Springs, that obviously was a major fire. So again, just because it's showing that it's either normal or below, that still gives an opportunity for that fire if we have the right conditions, and specifically wind and that ignition in the wrong spot at the wrong time. So the takeaway for this outlook is that we will be above average from basically the 101 corridor east, both in June and then again in July through August. So as I mentioned, with a normal occurrence of a large fire activity, that still leaves us an opportunity to 1 to 3 fires in our coastal section, or 1 to 4 during the later part of the summer, with an opportunity for more opportunities inland. So last year we had a handful of onshore wind days through the Petaluma Gap with that fog wind that we get routinely when we have the marine influence in the evening. And so while those weren't offshore wind events, there was enough wind blowing in the front of that fog bank that it created control complications for our resources. And so we had larger fires down there than we would like. So one on the west side of Petaluma, and then another one over off the Lakeville Highway, that again, were not offshore wind event days, just that regular summer afternoon with the fog coming back on the coastline and a fire igniting out in front of it. So what they are calling for, this is a 4-page document. I didn't want to bore you with reading through the document. You're more than welcome to go look at it online, and I'll add that into the chat here later on the address for that. But they're calling for heightened flash drought potential and impacts to those dead fuels likely this summer. So we talked about it, that long range temperature forecast from the Weather Service, talking about above average temperatures. And so flash drought is different than a traditional drought in that it has a quick onset with those offshore wind event periods of time where we draw that moisture out, and then it increases the rate of evapotranspiration for removing the moisture from not only the fuels but also the ground, creating a drought situation. And then they also speak to significant fire potential is projected to be normal for May, then trending to be a near to above normal during June through August, favoring that interior portion away from the coastal areas as they show there on their graphic. So what does that mean? We've got a long fire season ahead of us. We've got a good buffer coming in as far as where we're at for our averages. But I mentioned before that it's those wind events that will really create that opportunity for us to push towards those critical layers. So probably some angst from some of our viewers today. And so what can we do to prepare for that? So CAL FIRE now has an application on our website that you can see on the screen here that gives the fire activity across the state with the fires, the current fires that are burning. It shows you the percent contained as they continue those day-long fights to get the fire under control. And then for your piece or for your knowledge on this map here, you'll notice that there's green flames and red and orange flames. The green flames are prescribed burns. So we're capturing where we're doing where we're bringing good fire to the landscape and bringing the reduction in fuels before we have those catastrophic fires. And then obviously the other fires are wildland fires. When the aircraft are flying, you can see those on the screen as well. So it's a good spot to go if you had a question on a far away fire or a fire in our backyard. We've got the running stats. So this year for late May, we shouldn't have these numbers, right? So this is the Southern California component. Looks like I lost my internet connection, so we'll let that work itself back up here. But the numbers that you saw and related to acres burned and the fatalities obviously were tied entirely to the Southern California fires. However, we are seeing an uptick now in our local fire activity. Looks like I probably stopped sharing the screen, so I'll get back into that.
Chief, can I ask a quick question while you do that? Can you multitask?
Oh, yeah.
So somebody asked, where can they access the field moisture charts that you showed earlier?
Yeah, I was going to throw that into the chat here
Okay.
when I get the presentation, so I don't totally trip over myself.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. Okay, so we talked about that, and we'll just, well, let's see, back to presenter. Okay, sorry about that. So we talked about where we can get fire information. The shot to your right is the jaw fire that is on the list over here. So it takes you into some incident specific information, including but not limited to the Alert California cameras that are looking at the fire, the daily information reports on how the fire is going and what's at risk, as well as the ability for 3D mapping. So if you've got friends or neighbors in the neighborhood and you're checking to see how they're doing as those perimeters are updated, it gets to push to that, and you can spin that around and take a look at different angles to see where exactly the fire is at. So fires are coming. So at the end of the day, as I've mentioned before, that it's the wrong ignition at the wrong place at the wrong time under the wrong weather conditions. People ask, what's fire season going to look like? Prior to 2019, the running joke was that if you had rainfall during the wintertime, too much rainfall during the wintertime, you're going to have a busy fire season because of the grass crop. And if you didn't get any rainfall, you're going to have a busy fire season because the fuels were more dried out, ready to burn. But if anybody was needed to be made into a believer, 2019, we got a great wetting rain through the winter, and coming into fire season, we couldn't buy a fire. The fires that were occurring in what were deemed historically to be areas that would have created catastrophic fire events, we caught those fires, and it was going to be a non-eventful fire season right up until the Kincaid fire happened. So my ask to you and my ask to my employees and my personnel and my partner agencies is that we prepare prior to those fire events, because it's not a matter of if, but when. And so we need to do our part to proactively prepare our communities and our county for those future fires. So a lot of great work happening here in the county, creating fire-wise communities. We're adding those almost daily at this point, it feels like. And so that brings the opportunity for neighbors to work together, to bring professionals in, to prepare their community, to coordinate between themselves, to help each other as we prepare for those future fires. And Fire Safe Sonoma is a great ally in that, and they are your local conduit to begin that process. So I can't convey that enough, that that's an important thing that people should be looking at, as well as preparing your individual homes. And so a lot of great information out there, but obviously on the CAL FIRE page, readyforwildfire.org. We mentioned the fire map that I just showed a second ago. That's on our main web page at fire.ca.gov. But we're talking about preparing our homes, right? We have to have that plan prior to the fire, prior to that event, because if we wait until that time, it's too little too late. And then to go with that, please go to socoemergency.org and learn, if you haven't already, your evacuation zone, so that in the event of an evacuation, you know what area is your area and where you need to go, and pre-plan that escape route. You need to have a minimum of 2, preferably more, but a minimum of 2, because depending on the day and depending on the conditions, the main route out that you take may be compromised. We saw that in so many fires, but specifically the glass fire most recently, where the community of Oakmont is evacuating, were creatures of habit. And so day to day, we go into town for groceries, we go into town for doctor's visits and everything else. And so when it comes time to evacuate under a high stress, low frequency event, our brain goes back to what it remembers. It goes back to what it knows. And so I challenge you to make a point to go right out of the main drag in that community from time to time, so that it's clear in your mind what that second or third or fourth route out looks like. At the end of the day, you're looking to get distance between you and the main body of fire. So even if it takes you longer to get to your ultimate destination, you're just trying to put distance between you and that threat from that wildfire. And then the different tools that come from that. And that is what I have. So with that, I'll throw in the chat for our North Ops link, and I'll open it up to questions.
All right. That timing is just about perfect. That never happens. So appreciate that, Chief. Yeah, we do have another question besides the one I tossed to you earlier about the moisture charts. And this is pretty interesting. I'm glad somebody dropped this in the Q&A. So will the recent reductions in NOAA staffing and other federal assistance, will that affect our readiness, and what, if any, adjustments will be needed? Are you guys seeing the impacts of any of that yet?
We are not. We
Okay.
are not.
Yeah. So the NOAA staffing hasn't impacted your CAL FIRE folks. Do you guys have Are your meteorologists that work through the forestry and fire protection, are they different than NOAA? Do you have independent meteorologists?
So we share our meteorological staff with our federal partners. So out of North Ops and South Ops, that's the folks that are creating our predictive services data.
Okay, thank you. But you mentioned earlier about the purple flag. I learned of that like last Thursday at a presentation. Karen Hancock from Hancock from Sonoma County Fire District was doing a presentation, as well as I at a community group, and she dropped the purple flag thing on us. I'm like, wow, I haven't heard of that. So our fires, do you know if the fire districts, fire stations in Sonoma County, are they geared up yet to, fly purple flags during purple flag days or anything like that? I know we were doing that with red flags.
No, so the weather service, a lot of this material starts in Australia and works its way towards the US. So Australia was ahead of us with the purple flag. The purple flag is a relatively new thing for us specifically here in California. So in time, all of our fire stations across Sonoma County, both CAL FIRE and our local partners, have red flags that they put at the fire station that are indicative of fire weather. So the moral of the story is, if you see the red flag, that's already bad, and so purple is worse, right? So my ask to the public is, you're going to see that hopefully more times than not on the news or social media before you drive past your local fire station. The fire station is just hopefully that last line of defense, or that net for somebody who missed the news in the morning for those conditions. So, if we start talking about purple flag events, that's and even down to a red flag. My ask to the public is that when you see it in the news about red flag, that's the time to make sure that you got your go bag put together and out and ready to go. You've got your animal carriers all set up, and your pills and medication, everything that you're going to need to leave that house in short order. That needs to be out for the duration of the red flag event. So if we graduate into purple, maybe that's the time where you decide you're going to take a trip out to the coast, or you're going to go visit somebody and not be up on the top of the hill where you normally live.
Yeah, so I guess, to use your term, the moral of that story is the regular citizen like me and so many others ideally should never see in person a purple flag.
Correct.
Yeah, if we're seeing it, we should have left already. Okay. Somebody wrote, they just put up the fire hazard signs in their neighborhood, the ones that have like the speedometer kind of thing with the arrow, low, medium, high fire danger. They're wondering, like, given that Sonoma County has different geographies, and some areas may have a red flag, say North Sonoma County, where South Sonoma County may not be in a red flag. Where can people find current status for a specific area?
Another go-to spot for me for that, the CAL FIRE webpage will list the red flag. It'll show the red flag on the map. But another spot that I go to daily during fire season is the National Weather Service Weather and Hazards page. And if I throw that in the link, there's a lot of great information there as well, but the default is the hazards and warnings. So if I go back to, looks like I lost my Zoom again. So bear with me as that connects back up.
Okay. Yeah. Even for us at Fire Safe Sonoma, I'm reluctant to put something generically that says red flag. Because if somebody visits our site and says, "Oh, red flag warning," Well, it might not be in parts of Sonoma County, and it might be. So we are countywide, so it's hard for us to do that. But, Firewise community or something like that, if they have a site or website or want to share the information with their area folks through their listserv locally, that could be pretty cool if they knew where to get that information.
Sure.
Speaking of getting information, you pointed out that the county has, alert warnings through SOCO adapts or SOCO alert, sorry. And folks, if they're in unincorporated Sonoma County, actually, I think whether they are or not, they should probably sign up for SOCO alerts. But I also want to remind folks, if you also live in the city of Santa Rosa, you probably want to sign up for those alerts as well. Petaluma, I'm not sure what they've got going on, but you can check. So check with whatever municipality you live within, if you are in a municipality and not just, only in unincorporated, and see what they're doing. In my opinion, better to have more than, less. And then also, I also recommend personally Watch Duty. It's a pretty good app that a lot of people find really useful to stay appraised of what's going on. All right, let's see what else. Any questions in the chat that I haven't answered? No, not yet. So I'm going to toss something out that might be a little obscure. So I was pitched recently a device. I'm calling it a community smoke detector. And it's a device that is mounted outside, and it's meant to detect products of combustion at a community's level. And the idea is several of these would be placed all over the county. And when they detected smoke, it could be confirmed either with the fire cameras or, if you happen to have it near you, you can go look and then reinforce that data if it's a real fire, or acknowledge that, oh, it's not a real fire, it's just a barbecue. Have you seen that yet or heard of that?
I've heard of it. The version that I've heard of will theoretically pinpoint the location of a fire. The network that you would have to establish across the county to do that would be substantial.
Yeah, really big.
Day and age, I mean, we've got the Alert California cameras. That is amazing as they are. 99 out of 100 times, and probably 9,999 times out of 1,000, human eyeballs are seeing the fire and reporting it before the camera sees the smoke raised to a level that it can see. So technology, it helps, and there's no always or never, but in this case, right now I haven't seen something that says we're ready to go down that road.
Yeah, I think Sonoma Valley Fire is doing some on a trial basis. I spoke with their fire marshal out there, Trevor Smith, and they're beta testing them. The jury's still out, in terms of their viability. I just worry with those that they may tend to produce a lot of false alarms, and folks may react prematurely before anything is actually confirmed. And then, of course, whenever that happens over time, the device loses its credibility and reliability overall, and people just ignore it after a while. So we'll see. And if anybody's interested, I am following that pretty closely. So if I learn more about that, I'll share that with folks. Okay, gosh, I hate to end early. And human noises. Wait, let me look at the chat. There's something in there. Oh, somebody wrote regarding the local smoke detector. They saw a report that a couple of Southern Bay Area counties were implementing those on a trial basis. Yeah, I forget what counties, but the vendor did mention that. There's nothing like smoke signals and human noses, though, right? Okay. Well, I think that's gonna wrap it up for us, Chief. I know you're sacrificing your time right now. I know you're away at a training or event and you had to step away right in the middle of one that you were really looking forward to taking part in. So I hugely appreciate your sacrifice there, and I have no problem ending a little bit early to get you back into it. And again, I do appreciate your time here today. Uh, and
My,
so,
you.
yeah, totally. And folks, thanks for attending. Hope you got some valuable information out of this. Looking forward to the season. There's no substitute for good information. So, take this information to heart and plan accordingly. And we'll see you guys all next month for our next speaker series. And I should have on my script who is coming up. So, yeah, we have lots of speakers lined up this year. In June, we'll hear from Iris Harrell. That's right, one of Oakmont's Firewise leaders who will speak about her experience of losing insurance and her fight to get it back. She shared with me her story. It's pretty amazing. It's going to be a good listen next month. So click the link in the chat to register for the speaker series. And thank you all so much for listening in. And we will see you next month. All right. Thanks, Chief.